Hi, everybody. My name is Martin Hallberg. I work as a creative director at Efterklaing, which is a part of AFRY. Please tune in on this episode together with Mustafa. We are talking about sound in general, but also creativity and why you should dance more. Hope you enjoy it.
Thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica Podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif, an urban planner, and you're more than welcome to join my big journey of exploring the making of smarter and more livable cities. Please don't forget to follow Urbanistica on the different social media platforms, and also let's connect on LinkedIn. Big thanks to Urbanistica Podcast partner, AFRY. AFRY is an international engineering and design company providing sustainable solutions in the fields of energy, industry, and infrastructure. Are you ready for a new episode? Let's go for it.
Today we have a new story and we have an amazing storyteller. I have the pleasure to welcome you, Martin, to Urbanistica Podcast. Hey, and welcome.
Hey, and thank you very much, Mustafa. Great to be here.
How are you doing?
I'm good. And I'm great, actually. I think I'm in a good mood.
Yes. It's so hard to get you to the podcast. Like you're one of the most difficult, I guess.
I'm very sorry for that. I mean, it shouldn't be so hard. But I also wanted to take some time for it because I think it's really important what you have here. So I wanted to have some time to think about things as well in before. So
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries. Thanks for coming. And I'm also like, I know you're like busy with the project, also busy with winning so many prizes, many awards.
Yeah, it takes time as well, right?
How many? Like,
yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's too many, man. Too many. I don't know. I mean, it's actually now we have a special project that is competing in a lot of different competitions categories as well. So it's winning a lot. So that is fun. We are actually tonight we're going to Grand Hotel here in Stockholm and for a gala, and hopefully we win something there as well. You never know. And also we have won the Red Dot Design Award for the same project. It's Yale project. As a Abloy brand. So it's fun.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Congratulations to you and to the team behind all this amazing project.
Thank you very much.
So you are our storyteller for this episode. And I'm really happy that you're here because like before I joined AFRY, I had that kind of no idea about like sound and how we work with sound. But now when I joined AFRY for 2 years ago, I saw like Efterklaing. It's amazing you're part of this company and you work with like all in sound and creating this experience. So I'm super curious, the listeners as well. How would you like to introduce yourself to us?
Oh wow, a good question. I'm an almost 2 meter tall guy, 45-year-old, born and raised here in Stockholm. Now living in Copenhagen with my wife and 3 kids. I am a sound nerd from start. I would really say from like I was 7 years old or something.
Like how?
In every aspect, I would say. Like I like sound and I like music in particular. I've worked with music for all my life, but also with sound. And it's actually started when I was around 7 when my father turned 40 and got a synthesizer as a present. And from that, I'm hooked with sound. It sounds crazy. It's actually now the presentation becomes a little bit strange, but it's actually my parents used to say that one of the first words that I started to say when I was like a really small kid was my own kind of word, which is alate. Alate. And for me, that meant, what's that sound? So I was in the stroller. Yes, I was in the stroller and said like, alate. And that was like,
But it's not like a proper. It's not an official word in the language. It's like a baby sound.
exactly, it's a baby sound. So it was I think it was my interpretation of vad låter or something.
Yeah.
So it became a latte in my world. So it's actually, I mean, it sounds like something that you make up, but it's actually true. So it's from that age.
Amazing. So how was your childhood? Like you told me, like you're interested in sounds. How did you do that?
I mean, I actually, when my father got this synthesizer, I built my first little band, my group. We have a summer house close to Helsingborg, so we often in the summer we went to a Chinese restaurant called the Golden Bamboo. So my band was called the Golden Banana. So me and a friend had this synthesizer band called Golden Banana.
Like your branding skills already started.
Exactly. I took something from one place and put it in another place. Exactly. And so then we start to develop this synthesizer music. But it's actually in the what do you say, like mid grade, when you're in the 4th grade or something, I bought my first sampler. So I had this Atari computer and a sampler where you can sample around, I think it was 7 seconds or something.
Okay.
And at that time you had these old, not mobile phones, but like stationary phones. And that was really easy to hack. So you can just open them and connect yourself to the phone. So it was super fun to just call up some person, and when they answered, like, Johansson, you could just record them and then you pitch the sound and play it back to them. Johansson!
That's so weird.
Exactly. It felt like a demon, doing things. And also you can reverse the sound and play the reverse sound backwards as well. So we had it was like rolling on the floor laughing around it, but it was super fun. So I started actually to elaborate with sound already then. And also when we did like school works for the music class and things like that, my classmates came to my house and recorded things, and we did.
So you're like all in professionally at that time.
We used computers, but also got into DJing. I went to a DJ school at Fryshuset in Stockholm and learned the DJ skills and had the computer and the DJ thing. And we're dreaming about having the studio and buying real samplers and things like that, but they were so super expensive at that time, so it was no thing that you could do. So, and from then I also played the cello during this time from I think 2nd grade and upwards, and also the drums. So cello and drums and a little bit of piano as well. So that was something also that were incorporated in this. So a lot of different band constellations, a lot of music production, and a lot of things like that went on and become more and more serious as a profession.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
As older I got.
But what did you study? Did you study like an academic?
No, I don't have an academic degree. I have studied a lot of different courses, but not examiner. So I've studied music technology, like the sound technician thing.
Yeah.
And I've studied a lot of different courses like literature and film and art and things like that at Stockholm University. But I have never...
Like a formal 5 years of sound engineering or something like this.
Exactly. Nothing like that.
Then all the young generation will love you because like everyone now, let's skip universities and just learn from YouTube.
But I will say something about that maybe later on, but it's not that good. But
we're gonna talk about this as well. So how did it happen that you start to work with sound instead of being a musician or?
Good question. I wanted, of course, like a lot of money. Other people wanted to become an artist or a professional musician, and we have this production constellation called Slippery People, where we produced a lot of different type of electronic music, like house music, old school house music, lo-fi house, I think it's called nowadays, instead of EDM. But we put a lot of effort in it, a lot of time, but it wasn't something that you could live on. And also those days, it's very different from now.
Which years are we talking about?
This is around the end of the 90s. It's like 98, 99. It's a long time ago. I don't know how you will.
93.
93.
After the Banana Band.
Yeah. exactly. Yeah.
So it was not sustainable.
No, it was not sustainable. And also I got an offer from a production company called DeLorean in Stockholm back then. And they were producing pretty much all of the commercial radio at that time, and did a lot of post-production as well. And I was really into that and thought it was super interesting. So I started to work there.
As a
sound engineer, sound technician, and also a producer of different type of sound designer. So I worked there for 2 years. And then I played with my band Slippery People in Malmö, and happened to meet my former wife there. So that messed up the plans a little bit.
As usual.
As usual. Exactly. Maybe people could relate to that.
Yeah, I think all of us.
Exactly.
Almost like, I moved to this city. Guess why?
Guess why? Exactly. So I needed to move to Malmö. But I actually love it now. But it's so I moved to Malmö and started my own agency, you could say, own production company in Malmö.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's changed the
entire future.
Actually, that's true. It changed the entire future. Yes.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
So what like you started your own company, and what was the focus of your company?
When I moved, I wanted to start all over and not produce any commercial radio at all. I was fed up with that. I thought it was like, I didn't like it. I thought it was
too much of fake selling, or?
Yes, and also the short. All this short,
like 30 seconds, or no? How long is?
It's 30. Often 30 seconds.
30 is good, right?
Yes, 30 is good, but it can also be 1 minute and things like that. And we are still working with now at Efterklaing. So I don't. This was me then. Yeah, exactly. And also, I was fed up with it because I had worked a lot with it for 2 years. So I wanted to do something else. So so it's just like I wanted to change a little bit of perspective.
Exactly.
Because I have during during this time, I've also worked a lot with different type of arts, also with sound.
Nice.
Both music, but also for theaters, for example, and for movies as well. Also short films, and did a lot of different type of productions. So I was more into that.
Yeah.
So when I started something called Radja Sound Design Agency in Malmö, I wanted to do a little bit of research of what you can do actually with sound. And this was around 2004. And started with, then I actually jumped on and laid the ground for a channel in the national radio called Din Gata, which is it's a sub channel to P3, I think now. But was locally in Malmö then, starting up then. So we produced, before Din Gata before Din Gata started, we actually produced 10 different pilots, 10 different shows for something, for the new channel. And one of this program was called Din Mamma. It was a hip-hop show.
Like your mom.
Exactly, your
English.
mom in English. And they took that.
Should I beep this?
I don't know. They actually took it and they wanted to use, they thought the idea was fun, but your mom was not a good thing.
Fun.
No, but maybe your street instead. So Din Gata is your street in Swedish. Yeah.
This is so funny. Like now you're like giving the titles like of your band.
Exactly.
Why are you always choosing these names?
I don't know. Exactly. Yeah, they took it and went for it, and then now the channel has become really successful. So we were producing 2 DJ shows for that channel for I think it was 3 or 4 years. So that laid the ground for my production company, but then I started to do something different, other things as well. And the interesting thing was that in Germany, something started called the Audio Branding Society. And it was pretty new at the time. One person called Julian Treasure was an Englishman who have started to work with this and talk about sound and talk about like branding and how to attach a sound profile around a brand. So three guys in Germany wanted to gather all the people that working with this. So I went there on my own, and I was like the only Swedish person there.
I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, I think it was maybe 50 people there. And they had these lectures, and we had a lot of discussions and some workshops around this. And this is now developed. It's still going on. It's now called...
It's like a movement or community?
Exactly. It's a community. It's a society. They also have a sound prize now.
Nice.
Called ISA. So, I mean, now it's established, and I think it's around 200 agencies that are connected to this. But I'm telling you this because I think that is interesting that the audio branding niche was starting around that and has developed a lot since then. And I have like surfed on that wave for these years until now. It has been really interesting to work close with this new development, and also getting to know everybody in this business.
So you came back to Sweden with a lot of knowledge and ideas and like
inspiration.
Inspiration,
exactly. Yeah, exactly. And started to work with audio branding actually in Sweden back then. And then was no one...
That's very early, like you're one of the early adopters, right? To this.
Yes, it was very early. So
did people understand what you do?
Now or then?
Then, when you came back and explaining to them, like, hey, we can do branding with it.
I mean, they could understand theoretically, but then finding the budget for it and started to think about, the importance of it. It was, it was hard then. But I mean, the more the new examples came, and I mean, companies working in a good way with the type of profiling and creating this profile around things, then it actually started to evolve, and more companies wanted to have it. I mean, it's like every business, is a lot of anxiety in the business. I mean, you want not someone else to go first, and then you can go after. So
especially I think in Sweden, we are like a bit careful.
True.
Too careful.
Exactly.
We wait for everybody else to do it, to try it.
Exactly.
Let's see if they fail or not, and then we can do it.
And then we do exactly the same as everybody else. Yeah, exactly. That's true.
Yeah. So you continue in your business, like own company, and what happened after?
So we actually developed a little bit. We were around 5 people at the Radio Sound Design Agency. I took in a CEO as well. So I was the creative director. We have a CEO, and we started to work a lot with physical environments, like shopping malls was the thing at the time. We worked with a shopping mall in Malmö called Emporia. So together with Vingårds, the Vingårds were developing it, and we were creating this different kind of soundscape for different environments, different squares at Emporia. And it was really, really fun to do, and also super, successful, I would say. Like, both the environment came to life in a certain way with these soundscapes, where we actually have had 5 speakers on top of each other for this Ocean Plaza, which is one of the 6 different squares. You can actually go by escalator and travel through the soundscape by going higher every level. So you have deep water sounds down below, and you have like waves and shore sounds and seagulls on the top, and then you can go.
Like, how do you create this concept? Is it like together with the client, or like you just look at the place and you're like, okay, this looks like this? How do you do that?
It's of course you need to have the workshops before. You need to gather all type of information around it and what they want to enhance from this place. And also, it's a lot of thinking about what type of visual elements are standing out in this place. What will people look at? How will they feel when they come here? How can we enhance the things that is already there, so we don't come in with a concept that is like, crashing with something that is in the environment?
So is sound secondary? First is architecture and the form?
I would say that.
And then sound is something you complementary.
Exactly. It's complementary, but it's also very, very powerful.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
if you do it in the right way, you will get a much
The
stronger
full experience.
Exactly. The full experience, and you will get a much stronger expression from the physical environment. But if you do it in the wrong way, it can also, I mean, if you put the wrong music to a certain type of environment, it can also feel very awkward, and also the environment can I mean, it could be the opposite.
Yeah, it's like the backfire. Have you been in such like places?
Yes,
I guess you have.
I'm certainly
Like with the wrong music that's not really
Yes.
matching with the place.
Yes, a lot actually, and it's, I mean, sometimes you don't have. I mean, it's because it's they have missed the attention to detail sometimes. I mean, it can be also when in retail environments, for example, when you have a certain chain playing maybe commercial radio, and suddenly you hear commercial spots for another company that is like a competitor to your company. That is like super crazy. You hear commercials from you have no control over the sound environment.
Yeah.
So that is often happening actually. And there's a lot of other different.
What do you think about the toilets with the radio music?
Radio music, I don't know, but we have we have a lot of soundscapes for toilets. A lot of projects we have done.
Tell us.
We have for example, in ICA, a big warehouse for ICA, they have this bottom floor where there's a lot of trucks going around and a lot of action things happening. There they have I think it was 10 different toilet packages where we got the opportunity to do something there, and then we went full on. We made 10 different sound concepts when it comes to toilets. It was one disco toilet with like a mirror ball and everything, and only disco music.
Yeah.
It was one like poetry toilet with
like
poetry.
reading.
Exactly, real poetry, but also things in the wallpaper around. It was one jungle toilet. I think it was one like Sex in the City toilet with like you have this high heeled shoe in the ceiling and things like that. And also one water toilet with the shore and things like that.
Yeah.
And they got really, really pleased with this because it's, I mean, to work with the unexpected is actually something that has a really high effect. So when you least expect things, if you show that you actually took care of that type of environment, you will get a super strong effect from that. So, I mean, it sounds silly when we talk about it like this, but it actually is something that is a quality thing. So,
I can imagine, because like I also stress this point that all the projects count. Every single place on this planet counts. So you don't need to work on a super cool, fancy project in a football arena just to talk about it. But even like, as you mentioned, as a toilet, maybe this is the smallest, like could be a project or a space.
Exactly.
Maybe 4 or 6 square meters, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every single project.
And it's exactly, and then when you add up all these things, then you get the expression of the whole area. So sometimes it's just a little small detail that actually makes the whole thing. And also, when you start to think about that, they actually cared for all these things. It's like being we had this conference this weekend, actually, Efterklaing conference, and we were staying at the Arne Jacobsen Hotel in Copenhagen, like the Collection Hotel. And there you can see all the details that Arne or his team have thought about. I mean, all the angles of things in the room, and also how the materials go over to, I mean, the
transition.
The transition, exactly, between the materials. And when you start to think about that, I mean, those small little details, you really feel cared about. So I think it's a good way of showing.
That you care, like, exactly. I want to ask you, like, because you read the research, like if you're in the nature, listening to the voice of nature, birds and the trees and this wind, it gives like how to say the body an extra positivity and has an impact on our bodies and brain. So when we do like an artificial sound in the city or in a hotel with the nature also, does it get the same effect on us, or?
It's a really good question. I can answer it in two ways, I think. So it's both yes and no. I mean, a part of that effect is actually something that you can use artificially. I mean, if you're listening to bird songs, you will get a part of the effect of being in the forest yourself. At the same time, all these impacts, all these impressions that you get in the forest are a sum of a lot of different factors. And when you're only listening to a sound, one factor in an office, for example, you don't get the whole effect, of course. So we can use it. I mean, there's a lot of studies that shows that, for example, the stress levels go down, the heart rate go down when you have listened to bird songs. So that's why it's played in a lot of airports or it's like stressful environments.
Yeah.
So it's used in that way, and it's not only for like lack of creativity from sound designers. It's actually because it has an effect on us. So you can use it in that way, but if you also think about what other factors there are in that room and maybe find other ways of also communicating the same thing, you can actually get a lot more effect of it.
Okay.
So, but at the same time, I mean, your question is, can we just build up this fake sound environment and then it
like
feels
a forest? I'm in the city, but I listen to a forest.
Exactly. I think that we should. I mean, this is a super big subject. I'm used to talk about how we can remix the city of the city soundscape, because there's a lot of sounds in the city that we as humans are not. I mean, the sounds are not meant to be listened to. It's just consequences of other things, actually. I mean, take the cars, for example, the traffic sounds. It's a lack of energy. That type of energy could actually go into the engine and become movement instead. Instead, it's leaking out to us.
You mean like transforming the sound wave?
Exactly. It's leaking out. It's leaking out as sound waves. And then we have to listen to it because it's just a consequence of what the engine is producing. And now we have much more control over it because we are starting to design the sound of the engines, and then we can actually. I mean, it's still a lot of sounds coming from the friction from the tires against the ground, against the concrete. So that is something that is harder to do something about. But the engine sound is actually something that we can reform, and by that we can actually create the future traffic sound of the city, because we have that in control now. So if you start to think about that, we can actually lower the traffic volume and also try to enhance other types of sounds in the city, like, as you said, like forest sounds, for example. That is something you can do artificially. I mean, you can put in speakers in some ways, but the best way is actually to have the sound sources in the city. I mean,
like the tree.
The tree, example.
Okay.
And I mean, have birds coming to the tree actually and create the sounds from the sound source instead of just playing it through a sound file.
This is fun because like you're working with sound and you're supposed to say, yes, I will install like a speaker here and I will fix this for you. And now you tell me, no, just plant a tree.
Absolutely. There is actually a lot of projects for us when we were working with landscape architects, for example. We are suggesting different type of materials because the sound from the gravel is in a certain way, for example. We can also design the sound from a fountain. You can use different type of I always forget the word, like something for when this water come out, you have different dimensions on that.
Okay, yeah.
And that can also create different types of sound. So you can actually work only with mechanical sounds when you're doing sound design as well and create that type of sound mix.
Yeah. Just like shout out to your team, because like my team here in Stockholm, Urban Planning and Design, we do a lot of project with your team.
Yeah.
And they are so super happy every time they go out from a workshop with your team. They'd be like, oh, we learned so many cool things today about like material and so on.
Yeah.
So I like this like a collaboration between like designers and sound.
We have a lot of great examples of that as well. Actually, something in Helsingborg now also with
the Jungle Park?
No, it's the Eneborgs Plaza where we have built this sound wall together with landscape architects in Malmö, where we have designed this totally new type of wall that's actually have the same effect as a 2-meter high wall. But this wall is only, I think it's 1 meter and 10
I
centimeters or
saw it.
something.
Yeah.
So it's in a special T shape. So that is a product that is formed and designed by the landscape architects, and also have all the technical things that need to be there, and all taking care of all the inputs from our acousticians. So it's a really fantastic product, actually.
So Martin, back to the city. That okay, you're reducing the engine of the car and installing like the sound sources. What if we cannot install, like, a city is fully packed, we cannot plant trees and have birds, and how can we introduce the sound of forest?
If that is the special task,
Or not introduce the sound of forest, but I mean like artificial sound that make us feel less stressed.
I see. I think it's. We can when talking about remix in the city, we often use the term of 3 different categories of sound. We have red sounds. It's the sounds that we were talking about earlier. I mean, the traffic sounds. It can also be industry noise and different kinds of noise where we want different kinds of sounds that we want to increase, exactly lower. And then we have blue sounds, and that is the sounds from humans. I mean, sounds that we generate ourselves. It can be children laughter from a schoolyard, for example. It can also be music from a concert place. It can be a restaurant, an outdoor part of the restaurant. So different kinds of sounds coming from humans. And then we have green sounds that we were talking about, like the bird songs, and also wind
Like
and leaves.
nature.
Nature sounds. I mean, or mechanical sounds, but coming from nature in different ways. And I mean, there is different measures that needs to be done depending on what type of soundscape you want to have. So if you want more blue sounds, then we have another type of then you have to adopt other type of rules. I mean, you have to allow, for example, this square to be an open square where restaurants actually can have their seating outside, for example, to get some environment there. We can have schoolyards that is close to parks, so you actually get some leakage from sound from schoolyards into the park. So you can use, different type of planning to get different types of sound mixes as well. And also, I think Malmö is a good example where they have areas where they actually have a little bit less restrictive. It's actually the same rules, but they are a little bit less restrictive around certain kind of areas in Malmö where they have loud music, for example.
Okay.
So you can.
What's the point there?
The point is to allow concerts outside, for example, and that it's not something that you can do everywhere in the city, but have some certain areas. I think that is the future as well, to have different areas where it's allowed to have outdoor music or bring your own speaker, have almost maybe an outdoor rave at certain places, but in other places it's not allowed because there's another type of
like functions.
Exactly. Yeah. I know that they have it in Paris. They have this when you move to certain places, you have to agree on that it's a certain type of sounds that will come from the bar, maybe in the
ground
floor of the house. So because in Sweden we have some examples of people moving in and then closing down a restaurant in the ground floor because they are annoyed of the sound, and that creates.
Yeah, it's. I'm also wanting to ask you, like, is it good that our city is so maybe not noisy, but a lot of sounds in a city, or a silent city is a good city for us?
We used to talk about that silence is nothing to aim for.
Really?
And that is because that is the crazy thing when you're working with sound. It's always about like try to lower all the sounds that coming from the municipality. It's always like this. We need to have this area quieter. But we like to turn that question around and talk about what type of sounds do we want to hear? I mean, are we aiming for a quiet city? I mean, sounds is also life. I mean,
Exactly.
if a city is living, then it's a
Yeah.
lot of sounds.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we cannot just put a sordine. I don't know if that is the English word, but a sordine on a total city and think that that is a good place to be, because that is also almost a dead city.
Yeah.
So we need to encourage sound, but we need to encourage the right type of sound. And that's why I'm talking about the noise being just a consequence of other type of decision. It's not sounds that are designed for your ears. It's something else. But I mean, people talking or music or these kinds of sounds, it's just makes the environment come to life. I mean,
Of course. So instead of talking about how can we kill the sound and make it so silent and city or area, but let's talk about remove the unnecessary sounds that we maybe disturb us somehow.
Exactly. And just maybe, I mean, we don't need to rewrite the whole soundscape. It's also a little bit like lowering these sounds that we talked about, the red sounds, but also enhancing a little bit of the green sounds by planting different things. So thinking about what type of sounds that are generated in this environment, and also enhancing the blue sounds as well, and think about how to tolerate a little bit more about around human sounds.
Yeah.
So
Do you have like a magical recipe? Like, okay, this is so much of a blue, so much of a green, so much of red.
I wish there was, but it isn't. I think that you need to go to every certain place and think about that. We did a sound study in Helsingborg as well, where we went around and made a grid of the city park. So we made a grid, and in every single point, we both listened to the city, but also measured the different sound levels. And then we got different colored sound maps. I mean, we got a blue map, a green, and a red map. And then we can compare these maps and see what type of sounds there are at certain places in the park. And then we also slept in the park. We put up hammocks.
Really?
Yeah. So we were 3 persons sleeping in the city park of Helsingborg and listening to the park at night, because it was super interesting to compare the soundscape at night to the soundscape during the day, and how actually also like the traffic sounds become something that is actually have a part in the night soundscape, because then it's something that actually tells you something. It's a car coming or something. During the day, it's just noise, because the car sound can be of value. If you're on the countryside, for example, living in a small cottage, and then you hear a sound of a car, that's really important. I
Yeah.
mean, that someone is coming.
Mm.
But in the city, these kind of information is that doesn't say anything to us.
Yeah.
So our brain is
It's
helping
another
us to,
context. Yeah.
exactly, and the brain is helping us to filter it out. So then we made this grid, and then we have these different type of maps, and then we can also see where in the park that people liked to spend their time, and see what type of sound mix is it at that specific place, and got some value and good information from that as well. So, but it's I think it's hard to say like 34% red sounds and
Okay, like
22% blue,
because it's like context based.
exactly.
How do you do the observations and measure the sound and so on? Do you have like specific tools?
We have a lot of tools to measure their sound levels, but when it comes to the quality of the sound,
Yeah.
you need to have actually a focus group. So people going around and listening, and also you can have a trained group, but you can also have a not trained group. I mean this is normal UX like tryout things, but it's you can do it in different ways, but it's hard to get around the like focus group thing when it comes to the quality of it.
Do you do you prepare, how to say, or like when you go out in the city, is it disturbing for you because like you work with sound and a lot of like city is also, it's a big arena stage for different sounds. Is it disturbing for you because you need to think or you think about every single sound? Oh, how can I fix this? Or
Oh, you
what
mean
to-
yeah.
You know, like if when you are an architect, you maybe go and reflect about the buildings, materials, and so on. How is it for you?
Um, It's a good question. I mean, not so much in this. I can be annoyed in different ways. A lot of different ways, maybe. But it's. I think it's. I always think about that when something is really really loud. I think the craziness of having really loud sounds in the city and try to find the equivalent in the visual world is almost like someone came up to you with a big flash or something that flashes you in the eyes, and then you have to like,
Yeah.
I mean, close your eyes for a minute, and then you can open them again. It's like, why is it like this? I mean, why can we go on like polluting the soundscape? But it's when it comes to visual things, we notice much more differences. So sometimes I think about that. But at the same time, I mean, I love sound. I also actually love traffic sounds as well. I love the sound of the city. I think it's for a city to be vibrant, it
Yeah.
needs to have a certain type of soundscape.
Yeah.
So I mean, I get more stressed when I get to a totally quiet.
Same here, actually.
Yeah,
Same
yeah,
here. Like, I think because you're like into the urban and sound. I'm from Baghdad.
Yeah.
And they're like the city never quiet.
Sleep. No,
Like
no.
always. You know,
Yeah.
like people do their weddings in the street.
Oh,
Yeah. So it's as you hear everything.
Yeah.
We moved to Sweden. We moved to Helsingborg actually,
Yeah.
and then like Sweden, there's nature and beautiful forest and so on, and it's super quiet.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I can figure.
so we, like me, my parents, they kind of started to get crazy, you know,
Yeah.
because like it's super quiet here. We are not used to.
Were you stressed?
Yeah, I was stressed. I was like, there's something wrong. There's something wrong.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what should I do? You know, like we put the volume of the TV like higher,
Yeah.
and when we talk also, like we just like it feels like we are in nowhere alone. And
Yes, I see.
so I get this feeling now when you talk. Like,
But it's and also I think that the questions you have, like, is it good with noise in the city? I mean, in certain ways, it's also masking. I mean, if everything is quiet, then it becomes really disturbing if someone is like just raising their voice, like, oh, someone is speaking up. But if it's a quite whole threshold of noise, then it's no problem because everything blends in.
exactly.
So it becomes this like library effect. We used to speak about the library effect. It's also
what is it?
it's also it's the effect of, I mean, when you are at the library and everybody's so quiet, if I just put down my coffee cup like this, it annoys you because it's so quiet here.
Yeah, and you're doing something anti.
Exactly, anti whatever everybody else is doing, but also the quietness is so dominating. So you cannot. I mean, if you just put out your chair or something, it's really irritating.
That's true.
So if you create that type of environment for an office example, then the office becomes too quiet. Then you need to add sound masking, for example. Then you need to add sounds because otherwise people will feel disturbed because all these small sounds is actually interrupting them all the time.
Okay, so sound masking is like to cover the quiet or
Exactly, to cover all these small sounds. So we are doing it, for example, we are putting in different kinds of sounds of nature that's filtered in certain ways to actually increasing the sound level at offices.
okay. So it's not to create this awkward silence, right?
Exactly. The awkward silence is the right word for it. So and it's funny that it's a problem that we have too quiet environments because then it's like that it also becomes a problem. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Did you usually go to the library?
Do you mean me as a person?
Yeah.
Yes, I love to go to the library. I
Yeah.
love books. I'm a big reader, so I also have different book clubs. So
Really?
yeah, so we have like so I'm often at the library. Yes, yeah.
But it's like it's interesting that because this quiet environment also change our behavior. Like when you're in the library, you are so careful with every movement you do. You don't want to make something noisy.
Exactly.
So like even like with the sound, you can control people somehow.
Yes, and that's the thing. I mean, also referring to what you are doing as well, how to program places and environments. I think the library is a super good example of how to behave at a certain place and how you like guide people to behave in a certain ways, or like push people almost to behave in a certain way. I mean, in libraries, totally, everybody knows that we should be quiet. So, and you can almost create that in an outdoor environment as well in certain ways. But it's yeah, you can encourage people to be, I think, both more lively and more loud, but also encourage them to be more
quiet and silent. It's like in the football stadium or nightclubs, when you encourage
exactly.
the people. Okay, let's make some noise,
Exactly.
and everyone go crazy.
Yes. And we're actually doing it as well with acoustics. I mean, it's really important to have the right acoustics for arenas like that. I have a lot of colleagues working with that.
Yeah.
Because if it's the bad acoustics, it feels like you're only like 100 persons there, but maybe the crowd is still like 10,000, but you don't
Okay.
hear that because
What is like right acoustic? Is it material or what do you mean?
this is not my field, so I have to turn to my colleagues around it. But you are
Like a new episode.
Yeah, exactly. New episode. I can really recommend people doing this. They're doing it for the Avicii Arena, for example, right now. So it's really interesting to look at.
So give us like just a short highlight. So before I talk with them,
you could say that they are designing the acoustics in the way that the crowd should feel that they are large. Like I mean, they are large, so they should also feel that they are large. So
yeah.
And that it's a lot up to the acoustics of the environment. And you have the special circumstances with Avicii Arena. It's round, and that is kind of a special type of shape or sound. So, but it's super interesting subject, and I think I have my colleague Sebastian is really really good at this. So
maybe I should talk to him.
Absolutely,
yeah. What do you think? I have an idea. I wanted to talk with you about it. Now when I'm taking the train from AFRY back home, so I usually put on my AirPods and activate noise cancellation, which means that masking.
Exactly. No, it's actually not masking. It's reversing. It's recording the signal.
Yeah.
And then reversing it and playing it 180. It's not degrees, but it's shifting. Yeah, it's shifting the waveform and playing that waveform back to you. So it's actually
like balancing and zero. Like
exactly zeroing the sound through. It's not recording, but it's goes through a certain processor, and then it's playing it out again, and then it zeroes it out. Yeah.
Because okay, so masking when you introduce a new sound and put it over an environment.
Exactly. You mask something. Yeah. And cancellation is something else, right? Yeah.
So can we scale this up in our cities? Let's say we have a specific area and we want it super quiet, or no, let's do like this. There is a residential area, people living there, and next to it there is like a nightclub area. Can we do somehow that would have very big noise cancellation? Is it possible?
I think if you have the patent for that, I think it would be super super rich. I think it's actually something that is there's a lot of research going on that field. But the very difficult thing with this is that you need to have total control over the sound. In your headphones, you know exactly the length of the waveform hitting your ear. So it's much more easy. I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's easier to calculate how to reverse it. If you start to think about it, when you're in the middle of an environment in the city and you have sounds coming from all angles,
yes,
you had to play speakers in all these angles to reverse everything you hear.
Yeah.
And also, it wouldn't be enough because it's always new angles all the time, and the sound is always so bouncing around. So it's a totally different thing to make that happen in an open environment than to the closed environment that is in your headphones.
Then we need to build a bubble.
You need to exactly you have to live in a bubble. But
yeah,
maybe that's okay. I mean, then you can control your own sound environment.
Yeah. Then, like literally in a bubble.
Exactly.
What is your like biggest challenges when you work with different projects? Like the main challenges you face?
I mean, my I'm a creative director for Efterklaing, and Efterklaing is 140 people working with sound, so a lot of sound nerds at one place, and we have it's actually the world's largest sound house, I would say. So
Amazing.
yes, it's the largest gathering of sound experts in all these different fields. So
That sounds good.
yeah, it's exactly, pun intended. Exactly. It's so I mean we are having all these different type of experts in sound. You could say we have five different rooms in this sound house. We have acoustics, we have noise, we have vibration, we have sound design, and we have studio. And all these experts are working in their own rooms, but often they also come out to kind of a lobby in the sound house, you could say. And in that lobby, we can actually take on these special type of projects that needs expertise from all these different aspects. And these projects are often the things that I take care of, to manage these often global projects where you need different expertise from different areas. And it can be different things. It can be both like community noise things or sound designs for like this playground in Helsingborg, for example, that we're designing the sound for the playground, but we also need to calculate on all the noise around. So we have to build noise walls around the playground. So we have different experts from the community noise section, but also from the sound designers in the studio. It can also be like the project we have now with AFRY and Yale, where we are creating sound profile around the Yale brand. And from that sound profile, we can then produce all the sounds that you hear in the digital products. Yale is doing locks, for example, electronic locks. So all the beeping sounds that you hear from that lock is also something that should be of a certain quality and also something that's be connected to the brand. And for these projects, we actually had this large group of people, lot of like hardware specialists. They can go down and investigate on the certain speaker in the hardware product, for example. We can also look at the signal chain coming from the memory card and the media player going through all the way to the speaker and how the speaker is placed and all the things like that. And then we have the sound designers that are working with like doing the right type of waveforms and mastering for that specific speaker. And then we have people like me holding this process and also coming up with a creative concept around it and also being charged of the quality of what comes out of the project. So that is something that also needs expertise from all these different rooms. So I would say the biggest challenge, but also the most fun thing to work at is to combine all these aspects of working with sound and to also bring all these skills to the table, but also meeting all these different persons from the client that also maybe have a hard time to communicate. Maybe it's the marketing team talking to the product team and some technicians, and they're all at the same table. But how can we speak about the same thing? How can we come up with almost like a language so we can talk about exactly the same thing, and also everybody knows the importance of what we're doing? So that is the most fun thing, but also the most complicated thing in what I'm doing, I think.
So, by the way, because when we start to talk about the story, we jump directly into the cities and sound. We left the story next to when you became 5 people. And now, and like all the mentioned project is like with Efterklaing, right?
Yes, exactly.
So now I want you to take us back in time. And okay, you were 5 people.
Yes.
And what happened after?
We were, after we did Emporia and the soundscape for Emporia, we won also Red Dot Award actually for that soundscape and for that concept that we have there. And that took us around the world. We did a lot of projects in Moscow, in Kuala Lumpur. We did projects in Kiev as well, and in Milan. So a lot of different physical spaces. Worked with IKEA a lot, for example, and Ikano, or these shopping centers. So we were around pretty much with all these projects, and then at 2018, I actually known Zlatan Idnec, who was the former boss for Efterklaing, for a lot of years, and we have talked a lot during the years. But in 2018, he came with an offer I couldn't refuse to start to work with OF Sound and Vibration. That was the name back then, and the idea was also to form a new brand around this, and to create that sound house that we actually have today. So that journey was I couldn't resist it. I just had to jump on it. So I started at OF Sound and Vibration at 2018. And since then I've been here, and now it's called Efterklaing, but it's 4.5 years ago.
Nice, nice. What does it mean, like Efterklang in English?
Efterklang means reverberation in English. So it's both. It's a term we use a lot when we're working. The acoustics are always measuring Efterklang, measuring reverberation, but we also feel that it's the imprint that we make on the world, the sound that we are leaving after us when we're finished. It's actually the klang that we are leaving. So when we have done a good job, we have left the Efterklang afterwards to live on. So it's also have a higher philosophical meaning as well.
You like to work with like this philosophical and more like branding, like a story, not only.
I think, I mean, I can go on and speak a lot around this subject, because I think it's being in an engineering and design context as we are here at AFRY and Efterklaing. I think there is room for a lot more creativity, and also almost more poetry, almost, in this context, because we have all the skills, we have all the knowledge of how to do things, but to connect things in new ways, and also to explain things in a way. I mean, the storytelling thing, to explain things in ways that people really understand what we're doing, and also maybe understand, but also get inspired by it so they can take it somewhere else. Then you need to add something to that mix. And that is not something that you can calculate to get. It's actually something that you need to get from another part of something. So I used to talk a lot about this. I mean, I'm being the creative director. I mean, the creative director is kind of a strange role to have, maybe for an engineering company. But I totally believe that, almost like an AFRY context. I mean, AFRY is much more now into these things, and also I think it's only in the beginning. But I think the what do you say, like the capacity and also the opportunities to develop that part in AFRY is fantastic compared to a lot of other different companies in context. But to have actually a creative director that can take out some directions around the creativity, and also around how to tell the stories so they are becoming clear to everybody. It's not just like the engineers that understand it. It's like everybody's understanding what we're doing. Yes,
yeah, everybody.
Yes.
It's also like telling, how to say, because usually the work is done like, okay, architects do their job, sound professionals, lighting professionals, urban designers. But I think the next or the full experience, when all this expertise comes together and do something together, right? Imagine this is the magic.
That's the magic, and it's also, it can be done. I mean, we can sit at the same table, we can communicate, but it needs to have that special type of form, and also a special type of thinking, and also a conceptual thinking that is not really there yet, but I believe that it really can be. But it actually needs some creative direction, because to come there,
to lead this,
exactly.
I mean, how to say, because usually, okay, we have experts, and that's cool, but in the end, like we need always like the alpha leaders that really shaping or leading.
Yeah.
and then taking the team.
Yes,
Mm.
exactly. And I mean, it's and also creating the platform for it, I think. And I think the real, I used to talk about a lot at Efterklaing, but the real strength, the real value we are creating is actually how strong the bonds can be between the different sections. So if you're like an old school engineer and you're not interested in new things or new ways of doing things, and I am like this new weird person working with creativity, if we can connect in a good way and create this strong bond, that's the actual value of the whole company.
Then we
So-
fully maximize the use of our experience and tools and everything we got.
Exactly. So it's really important that everybody understands, not when we're talking about storytelling, it's not only the client, it's also internally. Everybody understands what we're doing and where we're heading. I mean, both the people that like to make visions, but also the people that don't like to make visions.
Exactly.
They should also know what we're heading.
Yeah, I'm having this conversation with many actually about like people working with sustainability, let's say people working with inclusion, diversity, with any, let's say, profession.
Yep.
They tell me like, but it's very hard to get all the people. I mean, but it's always like you have early adopters, then the people after, and influencers and so on. But it's important that you think about your people.
Exactly.
Not only you go and that's it.
No.
Just because you understand this, so you think everybody understands this.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, exactly as you said, I mean, you go. Otherwise, if you go and then you turn around and everyone,
nobody behind you.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody's there because everybody was left at the station. So you need to go back and pick everybody up.
Yeah.
And I totally believe, I mean, Steve Jobs used to talk about that creativity is only connecting things. And I totally believe that. I actually think that it's the only thing. I mean, and then you can, if you're like me, have been living in a totally different context, like the engineering world, then I can just bring a little bit of that context into the engineering world, and then it's happening things, but it's only just connecting.
Exactly.
It's only connecting two worlds, actually.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing that you have been somewhere else during your whole life.
I think this is almost the best, from my perspective. I know like you need people with the same expertise, so you understand what you do, like, and it's comfort zone and so on. They understand your process and things goes faster, and this is efficiency. But I think the best thing when you bring somebody else totally out of your field, then just sit and watch the magic. Like, let's say I work with children engagement and urban planning processes. What we usually did before is that, okay, I'm an urban planner, we have children, and we have people from municipality or land developer, and that's it. But now what we do is like bringing a teacher, or let's say bringing a play expert or Lego foundation.
Yeah.
Like people completely that we are not used to work with.
Exactly.
Just bring people and see how they can influence and make process and everything so easier and clear and good, like producing good results.
Yes. That's super interesting. A really good example, because it's also everything they do will become interesting. If they don't understand what you're doing, that's interesting. If they totally understand what you're doing, that is also interesting. I mean, it's all these different aspects is of value.
And the fun thing when they question why you as an urban planner doing like this, that's kind of stupid, no?
Yeah.
And you start to question your own process. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly the thing. I used to talk about roasting. I love roasting. I love when people get in and just roast your project and like pick on everything they can see, because it's a good training. I mean, it's a good way to understand and also to reevaluate and also see the flaws or see the value of it. So creating that type of feedback culture is really important as well.
Yeah, it's also like important that we don't fall in love with our product,
exactly.
But instead of in the result or the mission or the impact.
Yes.
So instead of defending, it's not like my solution, but okay, let's do this together somehow. So
super important, and also to kill darlings. I mean, you have all your special things, your things that you're
like concepts and
that you really like, and then maybe needs to be taken down by someone else
by the creative director.
Sometimes, I don't know, but it's
do you kill a lot of darlings?
No, I wouldn't say that.
What is your style like in giving feedback? How do you? Are you like the soft person, or no? You go directly.
No, I would say maybe it sounds silly when you're working with sound, but I see myself as a listener. I really like the listening skill, and I think that is the most important thing for me personally, to be a good listener. So I hope in the processes that I am a good listener as well. But sometimes I maybe have some experience and need to taste things, but also to always listen to things and also listen to new ideas. And also when you're working with sound, it's often like this, that, wow, you're working with sound. Maybe you should have like bird song in the entrance, for example, and then came up with this new ideas in their world because they have never thought about sound before. And then you need to be really polite and listening to people, but also maybe say that, okay, this is something we have tried out a long time ago, and this works like this and this and this. So not to stop their enthusiasm, but to,
But
in
also,
a gentle way,
yeah,
steer
their
them in another direction, maybe. So you understand?
yeah, I understand you. Like,
People will get like inspired by working with sound, but they can also come up with a lot of ideas that maybe aren't that good at the same time.
you'd be like, oh, this is so old. This is
Exactly.
not working anymore.
No, it's not working. We did that back in 2005.
That was the 19th.
Exactly. But it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you see like the future is more heading toward like because we have visual or graphical identity, and we have this story or vision of a company, but now is like this, what do you call it, sound profile or sound?
So you can call it audio profile, sound profile, sonic profile. It has a lot of names.
So as this is something growing up.
Yes, the audio branding world is something that is constantly growing, and I think even more now. I think it had a boom actually with the podcast era starting, when we're starting to consume more and more media through our ears. It becomes totally obvious. I mean, maybe you have thought about it as well. What is my sound brand? How should I start this podcast? What type of music should I use? Should I have some sound effects, or all these type of questions? And if you're a big brand, maybe have several podcasts, and then you have TV commercials as well, and then you're using voices in different medias, then you start to, we really need to take control over this. So I think it was, I mean, it actually got a boom out of that. Like, I think would be fair to say, like maybe 6 or 7 years ago when it started. And now with all these, I mean, it's a difference for different areas and different sections. If we talk about, for example, the smart home that I'm working with a lot now, with products for the smart home, then we are starting to talk about how to, what do you say, like refurbish is not the word, when you're putting furniture into a room, and when you're you're actually designing your home sound environment. So you are furnishing, was the sound word I was looking for. So cut this out if you want to, but when you talk about the smart home, for example, and all the products in the smart home that actually makes noise and makes sound, then you can start about how to furnish your home with sound. I mean, what type of sounds should I allow in my kitchens, for example? All these beeping sounds are crazy to have, actually. Like, have your induction oven or stove to beep at you in a really aggressive way as well. It's like, what have I done?
Yeah.
I mean, I just put a wrong thing on the
Yeah.
on the induction, and it's like need to
You mean all
remind
this?
me.
Yeah. Like all, if you don't close the fridge,
Exactly.
it's like alarm.
It's like an alarm going, and maybe that's good because the fridge
Yeah,
don't get bad.
I mean, but it's not that loud.
Not that loud. And also like the microwave oven. I mean, you warm some water,
Yeah.
and then you know it's ready. You don't need to get like all the time get repeated
Announcement.
Exactly. It's crazy. So it's like we used to talk about. It's like the robotic language. It's the the products that are communicating in a
With
certain
us.
way. It's not the way that you would like to have it.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
more like the product's way of having it, of communicating.
Yeah.
So having a profile around like that, and also taking care of all the product that you put out in people's homes, and taking care of all the sound impression that these products actually make, is also taking control over the audio brand, as I say. And also, I mean, another thing is like the metaverse thing. I mean, going further into that world, I think it's also even more important to have control over how your brand is sounding. So there's a lot of, I can mention, I think, 5 more areas, but it's I mean, the market of this is growing all the time. Yeah.
Martin, do you see the future is about video or text or sound?
Oh wow. I mean, I think it would be easy to say video because a lot of people are talking about video, I think.
yeah.
But at the same time, I really think that the sound media has found its place because it's really convenient to use cold media, as to say. I mean, I don't know if you heard the description between warm and cold media.
Oh, tell me.
I mean, there's a lot of different aspects of it, but you could say in an easy way, it's like the hot media is something that occupies you totally.
Okay.
So you're looking at the screen, listening to the sound, and like being fully concentrated or something.
Like a TV?
It's like a TV, or like your kids sitting with an iPad and watching something, and like having all the attention at one place.
Yes.
Like, and I mean, there's a lot of research around it that like the kids become passive about this because they get all the information. Then you put that away, then you're like all the different factors goes away, and you don't know what to do. Like, because it's like hard to compare to that emotional impact. And then you put it away, and it's like, what is this? I mean, it's nothing compared
Makes
to
sense.
And then you have the cold media where you take away one factor. So it can be the visual factor that you put away. So, for example, listening to something while you're doing something else, it's actually much more fulfilling in different ways. I mean, being out running, for example, and listening to something, or I mean, being at work, listening to music and doing things like that. So I really think that sound has the role to play also further when it comes to like media and information and things like that. And also, I mean, text will always be there.
Stay forever.
Yeah, it will stay forever, but maybe not in physical books that much. But who knows? Maybe we'll get a totally new revival and everybody just throw away their digital things.
Do you think there will be a new medium? Like we have sound, we have something completely new.
As all the AR thing, I think that it could be called a new media when you blend in. I mean, speaking of cold and warm, hot mediums, this is something totally new where you can actually just add things, mix in things. I mean, just thinking about having all these Snapchat filters, for example.
Yeah.
Going around with glasses where you can add these filters and looking at your colleagues, and everybody would look. I mean, there's so much thing that could be done in these glasses where you like consume the real world, but you add a fictional layer over it, or informational layer or something. So I think that is that would become a totally new medium in a certain way. But I mean, it will still use the same type of storytelling, of course, and all these old things that have been along all the way. So.
Yeah. So for Martin, for us, like working with urban planning and design, like the cool thing is like some people talk about is like building cities on Mars, like on other planets. So this is like, wow.
Yeah.
And many experimenting and so on, like leaving the planet completely.
Yeah.
Is it something like attractive for you to think about? Like, okay, how can we work with the soundscape on other planets?
No, I actually have never thought about that. And even now, if you're explaining it, it's not that something that grabs my attention or get me inspired. I mean, in certain ways, it's super interesting, of course, because we're starting from scratch, and we have we don't even have air for the sound
there is
to.
no sound.
No, exactly. So it can be interesting to think about. But I also feel that the older I get, and also working with creativity, I'm not that inspired by creative things because I know how to do them. I'm more inspired by the engineering part, the facts, the physical things, all the knowledge around these, and how to combine all these aspects in new ways. So, like the visionary things, and talk about new planets or new that is for me. Maybe it's a wrong thing to say. It's easy to do, but it's, I mean, to think about it and talk about it, it's quite easy. But to go and be really concrete, really
to do it.
to do it exactly. That's the interesting thing to be.
So if I understand you correctly, Martin, so you're not really into the conceptual, but you want like the implementation part.
I'm just so you understand me correctly. I'm super into the conceptual part, but the conceptual part is more about taking what we got and adding something to make it more understandable, and then bring it somewhere, like being totally honest where we are, and then making a good decision on like a vision forward, but not being like totally out there and grab things and thinking in like 10 steps ahead, because that is, in my world, it's easier to do, but it's yeah, I mean, you can do it in workshops, of course, but I mean, where you put your time, you have a certain time to work.
So invest it in something impactful.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's the way. Yeah.
And does City has like a kind of master planning for sound? Like we have a master planning for lighting, we have a master planning for like a normal master plan, or for greenery.
Yes. It's without that being my particular field, I wouldn't say that there is. I know that it's certain values that you need to, and restrictions you need to follow. But apart from that, there's no much else. So there's nothing that will describe it more in different sections, as I talked about earlier. So it's pretty, what do you say, like, it's pretty analog. I don't know if that's the word, but it's pretty, it's not that detailed. There's a lot of improvement that can be done there. But I'm the wrong guy to speak to about it, because there's people that have a lot more knowledge about it.
I you know what? There is something cool. I love that you're the creative director. At the same time, you say, no, this is not like my area, and I'm not like the expert here, even if like you're the creative director.
You mean the expert on?
Let's say like now about the acoustic, for instance. You say like talk with him. He's great.
Yep.
Or like now with the, let's say the master planning.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is not exactly. I mean, that's the. I think that is the main part of what I'm doing, to gather all these experts, and from their knowledge, we can then create the concepts or the visionary things. So it's a good thing that I'm a generalist, not a specialist in these fields. I mean, I can say that I'm a specialist in audio branding and sound design and these things, but for me to start to talk about their fields would just, it's not not the right thing for me to do, because I will like explain it in a totally too shallow. Do you say that's shallow way? So we need to talk to them directly. But I can, when it comes to the creative direction and how we can combine things, and how we also can use our knowledge to go somewhere, then I can be. Then I'm specialist in that field. I would say, yeah.
No, but I also appreciate that you're like being honest and talk about what you think.
Yeah,
you can.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what should many urban planners, urban practitioners listening to you now, what should we stop doing when we plan and design cities from sound perspective?
Yes, I think that it's really an interesting question, and also a good thing to ask yourself. And from my perspective, I think it's the first thing is to start to think about sound as a qualitative thing and not the quantitative thing. As you don't need only to measure sound levels, you also need to think about what type of sounds do we hear and how do these sounds affect us, in what way, and how can we change these sounds in a certain way. So I think the idea of remixing the city is something that you can actually bring into a process of what you're doing and maybe use in other aspects as well. I mean, maybe it's not only sound that you would remix. You can remix visual things or remix the program for a certain place as well. But to start to think about sound not only in sound levels but also in the quality
and experience.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
And what skill or skills you think we should learn as urban practitioners?
I think you can make a description between hearing and listening. So to start to listen to your environment, not only just hear, but to start to listen to it, and also try to think about vocabulary around sounds, how to describe sounds. It can be hard, but there's a lot of knowledge out there that can start to think about sound as something that's describable and that you can create maybe that you can start to think about the emotions around sounds and what type of effect these type of sounds actually have. And when you have that going, that type of dialogue, you can also start to talk about what things to enhance or what things to shield out from that type of environment. Because I mean, I could say a lot of things around this, but I don't think it's a good thing to add too much more on it, because it's still a new field for a lot of urban planners, for example. So just to start to think about sound and start to describe what type of sounds they want to have, it's the first step, and then we can take it further with experts or something else. But just to think about the needs for working with sound. So.
And Martin, if you get $1 million and you invest it in a project within city, like city development or anything related to this, so on what kind of project will you invest your money?
I think it's a really interesting question, and the first thing that comes to mind is actually playgrounds. I mean, a lot of more playgrounds, and also playgrounds for adults, actually. I mean, to making a city more playful in different ways. And to these playgrounds, you can of course add sounds, but I wouldn't invest $1 million in only sounds for the city. I don't think that would be a good thing, because sound is something that will add things to other types of things to do. So I think I mean, speaking about Helsingborg again, because both you and I have been there, you have lived there as well, but I think they have done a great job with planning a lot of playgrounds for the city, and it's actually have an effect on how people move in the city and how to like integrate different parts of the city together. I mean, all these things, and I think it's a fantastic way of getting people to go to experience different parts of the city. So
yeah, and it actually works.
It actually works, exactly. Yeah.
I talked with the Martin Hallberg.
Yep.
I think head of landscape architect.
Yep.
In Helsingborg, and Helsingborg, like they have a plan that they work with playgrounds as an element to get people meet each other and to break segregation and so on. And me and family, we live in an area, and after they built this new playground with dinosaurs theme, and we start actually to see new people coming, and we start to talk with them, they talk with us, and so on. So it's like it really works, and it's so smart, right?
Yes, it's super smart, exactly.
Instead of gentrification and all this,
all this. I mean, good thoughts, but hard to do something about. Yeah, and also this. I mean, having the kids, the will of a kid is hard to resist. So if a kid is like, I want to go to that dinosaur park, cannot say anything. You need to go there. So I mean,
and it's the super fun is also like the adults can play as well.
Yeah.
On the same play equipment.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that is a good quote. I think it was David Lynch, like the film director, who said, like, when you grow up, you think that you have control over things, but it's just that your ability to imagine has just gone smaller. So it's like you're just become like less good of imagining things and less fantasy. So it's actually the kids that have the most fantasy and have the most thoughts. And then you become older, it's like you're narrowing your brain. So you think that you become smart and become
but not true.
Exactly. So it's just it's quite funny that you're celebrating that you think that you have control over things, but it's just that your mind is just more narrow. So
into the box.
Exactly, into the box. So I think it's a good thing for everyone to have places that you can experiment with things. So
that's true. That's true. And I'm really enjoying this conversation. We're talking about sound and everything, and I love also to talk about people behind the big project, the awards that we see, and amazing things you're doing. So you're as a creative director, and you're a leader. What do you want people to say about you, or to read about you, or to hear about you, or to listen about you 100 years from now?
I think actually going back to the listening thing, I would just be proud if people would say that he was a good listener. That's pretty much it, actually.
What is a good listener?
What is a good listener? I think, I mean, I think that it's kind of the most powerful thing we have, to be able to listen to what people really mean, and to hear the details and what people express, and to find value in these things and to build on. So it's really a skill to master, and maybe it can take a lifetime to really understand people, and maybe we don't never understand each other, but to be, I mean, it's of course it's a pun working with sound. It's to be a good listener, but I think so also for every type of relation or work environments, listening is the key. And there's a lot of things going on in the world where there's absolutely no listening at all. It's like only shouting or only competing how loud you can scream. So it's also a sustainability thing, I think, just to go back to listening to each other. And of course, I mean, it's a part of what I'm doing as well. But it's I would like to be remembered as a good listener.
As a good listener.
Yeah.
Interesting. Can you lead by sound? Can you lead your team by only sound?
Yes, I can make them dance. We actually have we have every Friday we have lunch disco.
Really?
Efterklaing. We have in Malmö we have one song, at 12 o'clock. Everyone, we just play this song really loud, so everyone that wants to, of course, join in this room, and we dance in silence, just listening to music in silence for like 3 minutes for this song. And then the important of it is that afterwards nobody speaks about it. So we just go back to our places or go to lunch. But you cannot comment it, because then it becomes awkward. If you like stand in the room and like, oh, what was this? Then it's super awkward.
So it's just like a praying, but no, you go dance and then you go out.
Exactly. The same thing. You go dance and then you go out, because then it feels like you've just taken a glass of wine or something. You get really, really in the good mood.
This is really great. This is the first time I hear about something like this. Like usually, okay, silent disco, but then after you talk about it.
Exactly. You shouldn't talk about it. That's the important thing. Yeah, just do it. Like like a prayer or something. That's the same
interesting.
Thing. Yeah.
So the question is, can you as a leader, as a creative director, lead your team by only sound, like only, let's say, talking on phone or like sending voice messages, no emailing, no meetings, no digital meetings? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, I understand, but it's also super awkward to just send out
I mean,
voice messages.
you just danced 3 minutes.
Yeah. That's awkward as well. But I mean, yeah. You mean I like I should like sit in a house and just record things on my phone and just send them,
Yeah.
and then people would act on them.
Yeah, or receiving like voice messages.
Yeah.
Will you manage the business?
Exactly. Maybe I should try that. I don't know. I think, I mean, as you talked about earlier, like the future of what type of media is the future. I think that a voice recording says so much more than the written word. So, I mean, if you record something and you listen to it, it's so much more details than just the same words on a paper.
Reading on email.
Exactly. But with that said, I never send any voice recordings to my colleagues, so maybe I should start doing it.
Try on Teams.
Yeah, I can try on Teams. Exactly. Have you done that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, we are doing it.
Really?
Yes.
How in
like voice message instead of sending email? Like, hey, Johanna, I did this. Let me know what do you think about this.
Oh wow! Is it much more effective?
At least like Hannah will understand that I'm not angry or not liking her.
Exactly.
So she experienced my emotions
The
as well.
nuances gets through, right?
Yeah. Instead of like, hey Hannah, I appreciate your work. Can you change this?
Yes, I promise. I will try it. Yeah.
Awesome. So 2 things now. Name a project or a thing that you did in your career you're super proud of, and then name something that you did and you regret.
Okay. So I have speaking about darlings, but I have a project, the heart and mind sound concept that we did for a conference in Malmö called The Conference, actually. It's a fantastic name.
Back to the names.
Back to the names, exactly. Why call it something else?
Yeah.
The Conference.
Okay.
That we did back in 2018, where we worked pretty much like a fine dining restaurant where you combine different tastes, but instead we have 3 different sounds that we were combining in different ways, and I think that turned out really, really well. And we have a lot of like people coming to us in the lobby speaking about that they are like shedding tears, but in a happy way, and that was like. I really like that. I really like when you get people emotionally, but at the same time you are it's something that attaches to the environment and the thing that we are doing. So I'm really proud of that concept, and I've thought about it afterwards and how we can take it further and things like that. But that is one thing, and then things that I regret. Speaking about education and things like that, I would love to have a double examiner, like from
Double
degree from both like an art school and like a technical university or like an economical school or something, but to combine these worlds also in my CV, like on my, it would be much easier for me because I think it's pretty much what I'm doing all the time, but it's much easier to just explain them because I have these 2.
It's written here.
It's written here, so that's why I'm work like this. So now, I mean, after being in this work life for over 20 years, I think I'd almost have that education now.
And now you're teaching.
Now I'm teaching, exactly. But it's easier for everybody to have it on paper. So
True. Do you we have many students listening to us, and there is a trend as well, like you don't need the college or a university degree to work with your passion and so on. Just do it by yourself and so on. So what is your reflection about this? Do you recommend students to finish and to study another degree, or no? Like you think this is school is the best? No, life is the best school.
Yeah. It's a really good question. I mean, speaking about creativity, it's about connecting things, and I think it's a good thing to have one leg in each pond. I don't know what the English expression for it is. Like being in a certain context, but maybe studying a completely different thing, and then you combine these two into your special skill. So I would totally encourage people to finish what they are studying, but maybe not to only study the thing that they are really passionate about, just to maybe have the passionate thing. Maybe that is something that they will develop by their own, and they can study something else to balance that up, and then become unique in the skill that they actually have. So I'm totally for education. Yes.
Yeah.
But I think there's also, but I mean, it depends who's asking. I mean, for a large company like AFRY, I think there's a good thing to also hire people that don't have education, so just have
like what do you call it? The handcraft?
exactly handcraft, and also have like the
talent?
talent, skills or talent, or like have, I mean, need some proofs maybe of what people are doing, but I mean, it shouldn't be a necessity to have an education, because I think there's a lot of talent out there that don't have the right type of degrees. So, but you shouldn't underestimate it. I think it's a good thing to have.
Mm-hmm. And Martin, if you will choose to be another object or a creator, but not like Martin the human, the person, what will you choose to be and why?
I think it's a super good question, and me as a creative person should be able to answer it. But I think it's the thing that it comes to mind is an animal that is good at listening as well. I mean, to have the special listening skills. Like,
which animal then?
I don't know. I mean, is it a bat or something, or like a...
Yeah, but they are listening not for listening.
No, they're listening to
move.
To move. Exactly. So that might be totally wrong.
But okay, an animal that good in listening.
Exactly. Would be interesting to have super ears.
Okay, like elephants.
Yeah,
I don't know if they are listening.
No, maybe, but elephant. I'm a big person, so maybe elephant is the right type of animal for me as well.
Okay. What are your hobbies?
Oh, I have too many hobbies actually. I mean, obviously, music is my biggest passion in life. So it goes both from work, but also for my spare time. I use music, and I'm DJing still, and I'm also going to a lot of electronic, mainly electronic, but also other types of classical concerts as well. And also being out on a lot of clubs. I mean, we had this conference in Copenhagen this weekend with Efterklaing, and we ended up in a techno club at like 5. We were closing that place at 5 o'clock, and that is I was thinking about that. That's the fantastic place for me to be, in the middle of a dance floor with this music that is produced and prepared for that special type of sound system, and the environment, and all these people dancing, and like unite with these people only through music. It's a fantastic thing, and I will never grow old for that. I will be like 80 still on the techno dance floor, I think. So that is a big hobby, but also reading books. I mean, I'm super into books. As I said, I had two book clubs. One with friends, and another one with my dad and his brother, actually. So there's two guys pushing 80, and we have like this digital book club, which is a fantastic way to learn to know people.
What kind of book do you read now?
Everything is like it's both fiction and also non-fiction, of course, but it's you mean in the book clubs, or just
in general?
In general.
You read about like sound in the city and so on.
No, exactly. Only sound.
Or you have enough in the work.
Exactly. No, it's actually I'm reading The Uncontrollability of the World. It's sociology professor called Hartmut Rosa, who is talking about how to resonate with the world. It's super interesting. It's really a book, what do you say, like a recommendation for everybody who's also, I think, working with urban planning. I think it's super interesting because...
Yeah, we like to control the world, so...
Exactly. Exactly. You want, but I think that's the special thing. You like to control the world, but we cannot control the world.
No.
And also, if we can control the world, we lose all the resonance with the world. I mean, just the easy example is like if you know the ending of a movie, the movie becomes
it's boring.
Exactly, becomes boring.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of areas where we need to have some uncertainty.
Yeah, just leave it for the, what do you call it? Not dynamic, like more spontaneous.
Exactly, spontaneous, and also maybe have like activities going on in a certain place that you don't maybe want to be there, but still, it's like living in the city attracts different meetings, attracts different people. So not every meeting would be like the most beautiful meeting in the world. It can be adult meetings as well. So I think that is really a good thing to think about for everybody, actually, and also working with media, of course, and storytelling and things like that. And also read Knausgård now, The Morning Star with Knausgård. It's a fantastic book, but it's a novel.
You're reading, not listening.
No, reading.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good thing. Yeah, but it's. I mean, I'm listening so much.
It's interesting stereotype we have. Okay, he is a sound guy. Then everything in his life about sound, like communicating with voice messages, reading, and so on.
Exactly. I have to balance it out, right?
Yeah.
No, I love reading old school physical books. Yeah.
Interesting. Amazing. So now we are moving to the last section of this episode. And if you don't mind, I will make a video of you, put it on Instagram.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Before we do that, when I started working at AFRY, I connected with you on LinkedIn, and I'd be like, wow, cool. I'm connected with the creative director. Nice. This is big. And then I see a video on LinkedIn. You're like playing music with meatballs. I'd be like, what?
What is he doing? Yeah.
This is too creative.
Yeah, exactly.
What was it?
It was just, it was actually, an experiment as well. I mean, to put it on LinkedIn, I don't know if that, still don't know if that is the platform for it.
It's fun. No, it is fun.
It's like,
yeah, it's right one.
I'm doing a lot. I mean, being in this lab that I'm in, also at office, we are doing a lot of different experiments. So this is just an experiment. It's super fun that you can actually attach everything that where electricity can travel through, you can attach sound to. So in this case, it was meatballs in a frying pan. And it's also, we chopped up a song about meatballs. So I'm playing a song about meatballs on meatballs, so which becomes this meta thing. I thought when I did it, was like, this is actually quite fun. So I need to put it out somewhere. Yeah, and it's I have done a lot of different, like with bananas as well and things like that. But it's also, I mean, on a serious level, it actually happens things when you experiment in that way. You can start to think of things in new ways, and I've actually got some projects through this because people was like, okay, if you can play on meatballs, can we play on bigger physical things for a playground, for example, or can we make something in an office that you can be interactive with? And I mean, things are happening.
It works.
So, I mean, it works in some kind of way, but it's also super...
It works on meatballs.
Yes, exactly. But it's actually, it's so fun. We attach sound to a chess game.
Yeah.
And then we have super big speakers.
Yeah.
So every time you lift a thing and you put it down, it was like...
So you're afraid of playing.
Exactly. So we're almost afraid, and you have this super loud sound system. So it was really, you created this tension around the game because everything was sound effects where you were trying to move things.
That's so fun.
It's also fun to shift the perspectives.
Yeah. So now it's the last part, and first 3 questions. The first one is you give a message to yourself.
Yes. Jag vet inte om det här är så bra, men maybe it's too unprofessional, but okay. A message to myself. I actually think I need to don't get too emotionally attached to people I work with, because I always feel like I'm almost in a band with the people I'm working with. So when people are quitting and when things are changing, I feel like on an emotional level, like disturbed with it. So, and I also think that I don't want to work in another way. That's the way I'm working with. This is me, but also it becomes pretty, can become complicated as well. So yeah.
So like you're attached to your team emotionally as well, not only as a working.
No, exactly. It feels like friends, and it feels like a band. Like we're in this together, and we're doing this, and we're like. I really like that type of crunch work as well. To sit some long hours, or maybe even work nights sometimes to get things finished, and like presenting things in the morning and do so. But sometimes it's not a good way to work, I think, but it's hard to change.
So Martin, give me and the listeners 3 takeaway messages.
Okay. Number 1, start to listen instead of hear. Try to understand what you are hearing and think about how you can do something about it. Number 2, start to see creativity as connecting things. Then it becomes much less challenging and everybody can be a creator. Just to combine 2 things in a new way is actually a creative act. Number 3, dance. Use music as something that enhances you and gives you energy. And maybe use that Friday disco thing to just have one song every Friday lunch to dance to, but never talk about it afterwards.
This is I think I will go for the third one as well.
Yeah.
And the last question in this episode that is going to be you asking it. So what is your question to us?
I think the question, speaking about the creativity thing, what is your 2 areas that you can combine that makes you unique?
Thank you so much, Martin. I'm really happy. This is one of the funniest episodes in this podcast. I really enjoyed. Thanks for being yourself. Thanks for sharing a lot of stories with us. And as I mentioned, I follow you on LinkedIn, and I'm really enjoying and learning a lot. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, and thank you so much for being a wonderful guest.
Thank you, Mustafa. Great being here. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for listening to Urbanistica Podcast. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. You learned something new and also got inspired by the guest. Don't forget to share the episode on your social media and recommend it to people you think they are really interested in this topic. Thank you so much again for giving your valuable time to Urbanistica Podcast. I am Mustafa Sharif. Keep up the good work. Keep loving cities.